It'll be nice, calm, pleasant, easy to get along with today. We've already taken deep breaths. We're very relaxed, and I think probably the first thing we ought to open up with is this excessive spending with the county employees on these trips and so forth. Charlotte Peak Jones seems to be really upset about the election office travel budgets, and Gary Davis has came back and stated that if you want to really get into the travel budget, you got to look at the county school systems and so forth. So basically, Charlotte keeps saying that, people don't need to go over here and spend $200-300 a night in these hotel rooms in Nashville over there at the Opryland Hotel to attend these meetings. They ought to stay over at the where that light stays on at night, I guess, and it's always burning, and get those cheaper rates and not take so many people. And she thinks that one person ought to be able to go and come back and train the others rather than three go. Anyway, just want to know your opinion. I've got an opinion, but I'll let you share yours first.
Frankly, I thought it was much ado about nothing. It was their budget's about $8,000 for the year or something like that, roughly. That's covers attendance at training seminars, things that are important for them to put on good elections. The technological environment's changed a lot over the last 20 years. Laws change. You need more than just the director to be fully up to date. We have a history in the past. We had a director in the past who had some significant health problems along the way. You need other people in the organization who can fill in that gap. I just didn't see this to be that big a deal.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just appreciate the fact that we could get the results back at a decent hour now and not have to wait until the next day to get the results like we have done in the past.
I certainly want
our
every organization in government to be accountable and good stewards of the money and not waste money and all of those things. But this didn't seem to me to be that big a deal.
Well, I guess I just disagree, and I'm not singling the Election Commission out at all. I think that may be the only fault that I would have. I would not single them out. I don't think they're doing anything really out of line with what a lot of the rest of government is doing. But having said that, Charlotte's completely right. I mean, think about that. How could we argue with the idea that instead of sending, like for example, the school boards, all of them travel to the national conventions, and as I understand it, I think spouses go. Now, I think spouses pay part of their way, but it's certainly a savings to get to take your spouse on a trip to Seattle, Washington, or to San Francisco. Why would we do that? Why would we pay for all of them to go? And the other thing is, when we talked several years ago, when we were talking about wiring the schools, when it was hardwiring, which was expensive for the internet, they said, oh, the internet's great. We can learn so much in the classroom. Well, if the internet's so great, why do we have to fly to San Francisco to learn something? We can learn it on the internet, just like you all said you could do. And the idea that Charlotte should be criticized in any way, shape, or form, or even put down as unimportant because she wanted to save the taxpayer money?
Well, I didn't say anything about putting her down. I just said I don't think this particular. Well, I don't think that this was a particularly substantial issue.
What about the other one, and the other one, and the other one? That's the way government grows. Incrementally, we go, wait a minute, that's just $3,000.
We were not talking about sending families of school board members to Seattle. We were talking about our local officials traveling 125 miles to Nashville.
She was talking about saving the taxpayer money. And the way the taxpayer dollar gets ballooned out of control is that people like you take individual instances and go, oh, well, that's okay.
Wait a minute.
That's okay. That's okay. I think it adds up to real money.
Unless I'm mistaken, it was Charlotte who picked this particular incident that she wanted to focus on. Wasn't anybody else. It wasn't me.
Let's not say let's don't talk about this. I think we should say let's talk about all of it.
Okay, and I think somebody on the council made that exact argument. Mm-hmm. Well, wait a minute. Let's not just talk about this. If we're going to talk about the issue, it applies to a lot more than that.
Fine.
That's fine.
Then let's
do it. That's
not
what this discussion was about.
This was the start of the conversation. Well, let's get the conversation rolling.
Gary Davis said that the only way you're going to do these limitations that you're referring to is by cutting the budget.
Oh,
Period.
my gosh, what a horrible idea. Cut the budget.
That's what
Cut
he
the
said.
size of government.
And he went on to say that every department has a different type.
Now, I will
travel
tell you
needs.
my opinion on what that's all about. You know, if you start in on this and you say, we're going to cut this budget, then you are able, after you cut that budget, to go, well, gosh, that's not fair. Let's cut the next budget and the next budget. My opinion on what Mayor Davis is doing is making sure that everybody in the courthouse is upset about the possibility of their budget being cut, which will shut the entire process down.
Oh, so you're saying that they won't cut anywhere because nobody wants to talk
Well, I mean,
about
think about what that does. That inflames every other department. Oh, my gosh, they might cut my budget.
Anyway, I want to add a few comments to Charlotte Pete Jones. I appreciate Charlotte in what she's doing, what she's trying to do. You know, sometimes I think that you can make a mountain out of a molehill. And I don't know. They had an $8,000 budget. I think she wanted to try to get $500 more put in the budget this year because she figured gas prices were going to go up or something like that, just to try to make sure. And you know, I think there was 3 people out of her office that went on this trip to Nashville. It happened to be at Opryland Hotel. These places have these meetings at these expensive places.
Why?
I don't know, but it happens.
Because the budgets are there.
Well, maybe.
They have them there because counties pay to go there.
Well, and they want to have
It's
a
a
good
chicken
turnout.
and an egg
I know.
argument.
Well, I used to travel a lot of these type meetings myself. Of course, mine was in business.
Yours was all paid for by people who earned their living.
Well, I was earning my own
Right.
wage because I was making the money for the company by
look-
going. But in all fairness, I will say this. John, I do remember when we were not able to get our election returns until
Look,
the next day.
I need
At least we're starting to get a little more technical
Look,
now.
I'm
and
not.
able to get this done.
I'm not actually particularly arguing at the election commission. I think they do a good job. They've actually cut their budgets at times. Anytime they've had an opportunity to reduce their budget in off years, they've done it.
Yeah.
I think the office has run well. That's not my point. My point is the philosophy of looking at the budget
agree
and
with you on
saying,
that.
anywhere we can cut, we should be trying to cut. Anywhere we can save, we should try to save. That's my point. So I don't want Charlotte, whether I think that there's a lot of fat to cut out of the election commission budget or not, I don't want Charlotte or any other commissioner to be discouraged from constantly looking at the budget and saying, where can we save the taxpayer some money?
And I agree with you on that. I think that she's brought up a point. I think it makes the election commission look bad. And I don't think she really tried to do that. She was just using a point.
I think this happened to pop up at the
Yeah.
moment, and she grabbed a chance to try to say, let's save a little money.
I just wanted to come back and say to the election commission, I appreciate
They do
getting
do
the
an excellent
voting
job.
returns in
They do.
Okay.
at a decent hour, and
and-
I know that's from education.
And let's put that in context, though. You know, if we're saying that this particular governmental group does a good job, that they've been efficient, that they have in fact cut their budgets at times, and the people who run that organization in that context come back and say, I need $500 extra in my budget for this, I think that there's a good reason to listen to them.
All right, well, let me tie something into that then. Here's the problem with this. We don't have any way to evaluate what the election commission is asking for based on what other people are asking for. If we had zero-based budgeting that a lot of us have asked for years, that the business community functions under zero-based budgeting all the time because it's just common sense. But of course, this is government, so we don't need any common sense in government. If we had zero-based budgeting, we could look at all of the budgets and say, gee, which ones have done a good job? Which ones are beneficial to the taxpayer? Which ones should maybe be trimmed a little bit? That would allow us to reward a department that's done well, and it would allow us to streamline government. But the powers that be don't want zero-based budgeting.
Well, maybe this will lead to it. Maybe we'll start looking at the travel. I'm sure there's a lot of travel fat, especially.
Well, let me ask you a question. The election commission does a good job. Does the state election commission do a good job?
I don't know.
Well, I guess they need some more travel. And if they need travel, probably the Department of Health and Human Services, they need travel. You know, and then you go up to the federal level. Well, gosh, they do a good job too. They need some more travel. My point is that's how this incrementalism explodes the size of government. Everything we look at on an individual basis and go, oh, well, that makes sense. Let's spend some money on that. And before long, we're spending money everywhere.
I agree. Anyway, my hat's off to Charlotte for looking into it. I don't think the county election commission is doing that much wrong. I think, you take 3 people from that office to go over there and go to classes and so forth. It's probably needed. Who knows? I don't know that one person can go and come back and properly train someone. I always tried, when I went to meetings, I tried to get as much education out of them as I could. Most of these meetings have different speakers going on. They had different things you could, if your needs were computer needs, they had areas that you could go to at these meetings and look into new computer systems and whatever. And what's coming down the pike. There's a lot of education that goes on with it. So sometimes I think these things need to take place, but I think it is probably out of hand sometimes in other areas, not totally with the county election commission.
There's no problem with looking at these.
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Louis Alpers is really upset with this new dog catcher outfit around town. Evidently, is it called the SPCA?
Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals.
Okay, SPCA. Their office, or wherever this is in the city operation. So they've gotten complaints from some people in the city about this. So next thing you know, evidently the police were out there and they were running a big investigation that these animals weren't properly being taken care of and everything. And it looks like Commissioner Alford was a little bit upset about it, but he's talking about that the animals are being taken care of, and they went on to say that they're trying to get this new shelter up and moving, and there is a learning curve. But from 5 or 6 police officers and everything else that went responding to this thing, they really found nothing wrong. So, there's another waste of county money. And we're all about dogs again. Here we go. Any other comments y'all want to say about the SPCA? I don't take that.
Well, there's been a long, rather unusual turf battle, not so much between the governments as groups of animal supporters in Bradley County and Cleveland over the last 10 to 15 years. And so my guess is it's a vestige from that battle more than it is a serious concern.
Well, now it's real serious to these people.
Well, no, I'm not criticizing the passion that groups have for causes that are important to them at all. What I am saying to you is that passion has sometimes led them to be at odds with each other.
You mean you can't see the forest for the trees?
Well, sometimes.
The strut mystery's been solved.
I saw that.
Yes.
And it wasn't a white supremacist that did it, if you notice that.
And let's be glad.
Well, we're very glad.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. I mean, it's a terrible thing this person did, and I hope he's fully held accountable for it. And what he did violated trust on lots of different levels. But I'm glad, in many respects, that it was this inside job as opposed to some zealot who really would have inflamed passions and caused divisions in the community. So I'm glad that
as far as the white zealot, there was equal evidence that it was actually done by an alien from outer space. But apparently that didn't get reported in the press the same way.
What? Let me ask you, Franklin. This guy, he stole the $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
He's been to his preacher and he's done all this stuff. Come to find out, he's had 2 prior convictions, but not very much. Marijuana possession in '88 and another one in '98 or something like that. Anyway, he spent some of the money. He needed to help his mother with her mortgage and some of these other things, and he returned $30,000 of the money. From a court standpoint, what's going to happen to him, you think?
Well, he's facing a potential jail sentence of 6 to 12 years and an order for restitution of the funds that are missing.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. What difference does what he spent the money on make?
It doesn't.
I mean, that's the same thing that
He
people
stole the
go,
money.
shoplifting from Walmart's okay because they're a big corporation. They got plenty of money.
It doesn't make a big difference.
It's either
But
right or it's wrong.
I said that because it will.
It shouldn't.
If he goes to a trial,
It's not going to go to a trial. I mean, he's confessed, first of all.
okay.
Number one. I mean, There's, even very early on, after the first day or two, when they started investigating
when they
this,
ruled out aliens from outer space and right-wing zealots.
Well, the coverage in the paper very early on began to say that they were suspecting the possibility of an inside job. That happened
Franklin, you get what
within
I'm
about
getting
48
at. Why did we even go there in the first place with zero evidence?
Well, there wasn't zero evidence. There was graffiti all over the inside of the place.
There's
with
graffiti everywhere.
Well, they don't. All the graffiti doesn't have KKK and stuff like that on it. So that wouldn't surprise me.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about Bob Corker. What do you think about the new tax proposal he's planning on to try to come up with some funding?
I'll do something that I don't typically do, and I'll give him credit for showing some courage. I saw in the paper this morning, almost 50% of our state road budget comes from this highway trust fund. And it's going to run out of money in about 30 days because we haven't done anything to shore it up in ages. And
we've
that's a
also-
huge impact on our economy.
Let's discuss
here.
the fact that Bredesen started tapping into it and has been draining it out.
This is a federal
budget
budget we're talking about, not a state budget.
The state budget has been tapped out for other things, just like the federal. They mix this money. Look, I'm going to do what I do regularly that I don't see you do on your side. I don't agree with this. Now, I understand what he's saying, and I understand that we do need to fix this infrastructure. My problem is we're wasting all kinds of money on other programs in the federal government we shouldn't be. So before we reach out to put another tax on the taxpayer, I think we ought to look at getting rid of some of the wasteful spending, and my idea of wasteful and Franklin's are probably very different. Now, having said that, Corker's also probably being very pragmatic and saying, look, with a Democrat Senate, with Harry Reid in control, we are not going to cut any of the entitlement spending. We're not going to cut any of these other things. We've got to fix the roads. And he probably doesn't see any other way to do it. And that may be true, but it still doesn't make it right for our republic.
Well, should it be a tax on gasoline?
Well, here's the problem. One of the problems with this is an underlying problem that nobody really wants to talk about, Republicans or Democrats. You saw it in the cigarette taxes, and you see it in these gas taxes. You got a tax on gasoline, and that's supposed to generate X amount of dollars to build the roads. But then you go to the car companies and you say, hey, in the next 5 years, you've got to increase efficiency by 20%, 30%, 40%. Well, as the efficiency goes up, the gasoline usage goes down. So it's a declining revenue stream.
Yeah.
And so even when you raise this 12 cents, it's still going to be a declining revenue stream.
It's just like I bought a hybrid, and now they're talking about taxing hybrids.
Because they're cutting into the gas tax revenues.
What's your other option?
What's the other option?
Cut back some of the growth in entitlements and put that money to better use.
Yeah.
Building roads.
Registration fees.
Well, a fee's a tax. See, my point is, what we do is we never look at how the pie is being divided up. We always just talk about making the pie bigger. Let's look at, once again, zero-based budgeting.
Well, here is an example, though, where the revenue that we have collected for this particular aspect of it goes into this trust fund. And it has not been adjusted for inflation, which is part of Senator Corker's argument in this case for pegging it to the gas tax.
This is basically a correction for I forget how many years back, and it would begin to automatically index it for inflation.
And this is something that has been.
So you think indexing it would be a good thing?
Well, what I think is that these particular infrastructure projects are a real backbone of our continued economic growth in the country. And while I appreciate on one level your fiscal conservatism, John, there are not every government expenditure is wasteful. Many government expenditures are investments. And that's the way I see roads and bridges.
I don't disagree with you at all, Franklin. But my point is,
you
use that to justify this tax without saying, let's get rid of some of the stuff that isn't an investment.
There may very well be some things you can cut, but you can't cut enough to shore up
Oh,
that
absolutely.
program.
Well, let me give you an
Well,
example.
but you have different
you just
priorities.
bragged on indexing, right?
No, I'm not bragging on anything. I'm telling you what his proposal was.
Let's index welfare.
That's his proposal.
Let's index the welfare, the poverty levels. Should those have been indexed over the years?
If they had been, those entitlements would be a lot bigger now than they are now.
Not the payments, Franklin, the poverty levels. The poverty levels were stuck in the 60s. That's why more and more people continued to qualify.
Well, those levels have been raised, John.
They have not been indexed.
Well, okay.
You index them, they go up every year, which means they hold constant. The idea of indexing is it holds constant.
It's the same theory for why people get increases in their Social Security benefits. That's indexing, in theory, although it hasn't kept up with inflation. But that's the theory behind it.
What about toll roads?
Well,
A lot of states have sold them and done well with
but
it.
this is not a state project we're talking about here. See, this is what a lot of people fail to understand or aren't told the truth about. All right. And this is just not in Tennessee. This is nationwide. Almost 50% of the road building and bridge building budgets nationwide are coming from the federal government. That's just a fact. And the paper this morning's got 3 or 4 significant road projects in Tennessee that are threatened with they can't finish them if this trust fund isn't shored up.
Well, I'll give you an example of some things. Excuse me. They quit working on these projects in prime time because they run out of money.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have any new money until November. What happens in November?
It's cold.
It's too cold to work on the roads.
But here's my point, though, Franklin. I'm really not criticizing Corker for this because I think he's being pragmatic. I think he's looking at what you're talking about. Look, we've got bridges, we've got roads, we have to do this. My problem is, you're bragging on him being brave. Where's your Democrat side? Where's the Democrats looking at where we could cut some programs? Every time the Republicans say, fine, we will go out on a limb with our base and we'll support spending a little extra money on this or that, but we want an equal cut. Your side demonizes us and says you want poor children to starve.
The proposal that was put forward also made permanent a series of tax cuts that had been put in the last
let's
10
see
years
how
too,
Harry
so that
Reid
they don't have
goes
to be
along with
voted
that.
on every year.
Let's see how Harry
For
Reid
example,
goes
your
along with
ability to write off your state sales taxes on your federal income tax return.
But I mean,
that got
you know
made
what,
permanent
Franklin?
in this proposal.
But think about that for a minute. The fact that we have to argue over whether we should be allowed to write our state taxes off on our federal taxes, that's an insult to the founders. Hey, states are going to tax you, and then the federal government's going to tax you on the money the state took away from you.
Well, there are special rules that had to be put in place for
Because we
Tennessee
have
and
too
one or
big
two
of a
other
tax
states
system.
because
we should go to
most
a flat
people
tax,
don't
and
have,
that
don't have
fix
this
all
issue.
of this.
What about the death tax?
Well, in the state of Tennessee, once the Republicans took control of the state house and the state senate for the first time in 142 years, we got rid of the estate tax. We've cut the sales tax on food. We've cut all kinds of taxes. We've cut the hall income tax. And the state revenues have done better, and the state of Tennessee is considered one of the top states to move a business to or to live in the United States.
Well, I don't know. New York's given a big tax break
For 10 years, and then they get right back in on you.
But
now think about that for a minute. Hey, obviously we admit our taxes are too high, but we're only going to do them away for 10 years for you.
I love New York. They're advertising this on television, spending a fortune on it, and 10-year tax break. But they don't tell you what you're going to get into when you get there with unions and everything else.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about this? This is a news story just yesterday. The world's largest medical technology company, Medtronic, has announced plans to move its corporate headquarters from Minneapolis to Dublin, Ireland.
I read that article too, and it's several medical manufacturers because of the Obama tax on medical.
Well, the Heritage Tax Foundation, a tax expert there, Curtis Dubé, predicted this trend over a year ago. It says we are the only developed country in the world that attempts to tax the foreign earnings of our businesses, and we do so at the highest rate in the industrialized world. Mm-hmm. But we can't figure this out. You know, we had another electrical equipment company, Eaton, moved to Dublin. Ireland has one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the world.
There's going to be more and more move if we don't change some of these things. What's your opinion, Franklin?
Well, first of all, John's not accurate that we're the only nation that taxes foreign earnings. That's not true.
It's the only developed country in the world.
That's not accurate. You do have an argument about the level of the corporate tax rate because it is higher than most of our competitors in the case.
I mean, the developed countries, which is what I said.
So what we've ended up is in a situation where many of these corporations are taking advantage of loopholes in the tax laws to move money and claim that it wasn't earned here when that's not really accurate at all, and to avoid paying taxes on it.
But frankly,
and so
they're not doing that in Ireland.
Consequently, they are. Well, okay.
This is what you
no.
No,
Here's the thing, though, John.
Wait.
Wait.
Feel like taxes are fair. They pay them.
Wait a minute. All they're doing is they're moving an office building. They're not moving their manufacturing.
20%.
Well, guess what? They're moving an office building and all their earnings because of you and your party's policies.
No, it's
and you
not.
all aren't smart enough to
this
figure
is
that
not
out.
a policy that was put into place by Democrats.
Yes, it was.
John, this policy
Republicans
has been around
have
for 30
advocated
years.
cutting the corporate tax rate for years. And the
It was there when
Democrats
Reagan was there.
and he cut the corporate tax rate, and we saw an increase in corporate earnings
This
and tax
particular
collection.
company, they're moving because of Obamacare and being taxed on the medical
That
devices.
doesn't make any
Am I
sense
true?
either.
All right,
Those devices, when they're sold here, are still going to be
Here's
taxed on
Eaton's
that.
CEO.
Manufacturing.
Now, Eaton is another one of the companies that moved, and this is their CEO. We have too high a domestic rate, and we have a thoroughly uncompetitive international tax regime. Let's not wait for the next presidential election to change this. That's the president of Eaton.
And that's the argument about the tax rate. It's got nothing to do with whether we tax foreign earnings.
I didn't bring that up. You did.
That's like these
I didn't
folks
bring that up. You did.
Who set up
Franklin?
dummy.
You're
said that.
No, I didn't. I said nothing about taxing the corporate earnings out. What I said was they're moving because the rate's too high, and that we're the only country in the developed world that does tax their foreign earnings.
By the way, this particular president has proposed lowering the corporate tax rate.
And he's never done it, though, has he? Has it come up in his democratically controlled
We found
Senate?
out he says a lot of things.
Matter of
he
fact,
doesn't
it's
do.
passed in the Republican House, but it won't come up for debate in the Democratic
Senate.
Senate.
Proposal to cut $4 trillion off the national debt that the Republican Party walked away from.
That's after he added $10 trillion. Congratulations! I'm going to add 10 and take 4 back.
This was in the second year of his presidency, by the way.
That would be the budget.
When your party was absolutely
Franklin,
convinced.
well, first off, in the second
you were
year,
going to defeat him in the election,
Franklin,
so you weren't going to work
in the
with him.
second year, you all were in control of both House and Senate and could have passed anything you wanted.
No,
And
we couldn't pass it because we couldn't get 61
Franklin,
votes.
He couldn't get a single vote for his budget. Not a single Democrat voted for his budget that year. Matter of fact, not a single Democrat has ever voted for any budget he's proposed.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Whoop FM is a nonprofit community radio station that is made possible by generous donations by individuals and the following sponsors.
Speaking and singing, I'd like to start with the young man over there on the 5-string banjo. He comes from over around High Point, North Carolina. That's Billy Edwards. Let's make him welcome. What's that? What's your name? Fella back.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
You need money overnight? Check into cash. Your time is tight. .com. Bank account's too low? Check into cash. So where do you go? .com. Do it online in a record time. It's the easy way to get money next day. Do a quick click from home at checkintocash.com. Just stay in the house, check into cash, and grab your mouse.com. Get your money online, check into cash, right on time.com. You can be sure it's secure from our bank straight to yours. Do a quick click from home at checkintocash.com. No time to get away, check into cash. You gotta stay home.com. Hey, that's okay, check into cash. You can do it alone.com. Any old time, do it online. Just stay in the house and grab your mouse. Do a quick click from home. Get your money overnight at the right website. Do a quick click from home. Go to checkingtocash.com.
Did you know that U.S. Money Shops cashes all checks, even the ones most check cashers reject? Tax refund checks, government checks, payroll checks, and many more. And when you cash a check with U.S. Money Shops, we'll give you 10% off your next purchase. At U.S. Money Shops, we have everything you need at a fraction of regular retail. So stop by one of our 11 locations or visit us online at usmoneyshops.com.
Buy or sell or apply today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Some restrictions may apply. See store for details.
Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
Dr. Christopher Chase, with Associates in Plastic Surgery, now offers his patients the convenience of a Cleveland office at 2350 North Ocoee Street. Dr. Chase specializes for the ladies in breast augmentation, including lifts, reconstructions, and reductions, also tummy tucks or mommy makeovers, and facial rejuvenation, including facelifts, eyelids, brows, nose, and he also offers Botox procedures. Check out Dr. Christopher Chase. He is certified by the American Board of Surgery, the American Board of Plastic Surgery. He's a member of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons and the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. Check their website out at aprs.md. That's aprs.md. Call for your convenient appointment in Cleveland at 624-0021. 624-0021. 2350 North Ocoee. That's Dr. Christopher Chase. Rebel Drive-In Family Restaurant, the restaurant you grew up with here in Cleveland, Tennessee, located at 1010 South Lee Highway. Give them a call at 476-6373. They have a wonderful, huge breakfast, lunch, and dinner menu. It's the home of the famous Lotta Burger, and now a whole lot more. It's open every day except Monday. Yes, now even open on Sunday. Same menu, but new low prices. And don't forget, seniors, a discount on every Wednesday. Check out the home of the famous Lotta Burger and a whole lot more now at the Rebel Drive-In, 476-6373. Check out rebeldrivein.com. The Rebel Drive-In.
Author Debbie Riggs will be on Whoop Radio this Saturday morning to discuss her popular book, The Day Cleveland Cried, 10 a.m. to noon. She will then make a rare appearance at the Museum Center at 5 Points from 1 to 3 p.m. for a special book signing. The book is about the deaths of 3 Clevelanders who were killed in a tragic train crash in Thaxton, Virginia in 1889. 17 people total were killed, one of the worst train wrecks in American history. The bodies of 2 of the Cleveland men were never found, and to this day what happened to them remains a mystery. Don't miss your once-in-a-lifetime chance to hear and see Debbie Riggs in person. Call 423-473-4227 for more information. That's 473-4227 for more information. And be sure to listen Saturday from 10 to noon to hear Debbie talk about her book and then join her at the Museum Center from 1 to 3 p.m. this Saturday.
If you're looking for a home, apartment, or office space, Jones Properties provides residential and commercial properties in the heart of the Southeast that will fulfill any need. Plus, Jones Properties is one of the fastest growing firms in the area, which offers you more security. When you're ready for a home, apartment, or in need for commercial office space, it makes sense to call Jones Properties first at 472-4000. Plus, you can get additional information by logging on to the website at www.jonesproperties.biz. Jones Properties is also looking to invest in properties. So if you have a property that you need to sell, call the professional team at Jones Properties first. They'll help you find the perfect property for whatever your needs. Call today 472-4000. And don't forget to keep up with Jones Properties on Facebook.
From checking to cash, they're coming to town. Mighty Clydesdales of world renown. Such a rare sight, all black and white. Big excitement all around.
Check Into Cash, your one-stop money shop, introduces the Cashdales, our beautiful Clydesdale horses now touring the United States, representing our company heritage, appearing in parades, events, and visiting Check Into Cash locations.
2,000 pounds marching around, every hoofbeat shaking the ground. Tall as the sky, 18 hands high, they're gentle giants, so don't be shy.
Check Into Cash, now celebrating 20 years, is proud to present the beautiful Clydesdale horses. Visit cashdales.com for the upcoming schedule and more information.
Check Into Cash, they're on their way. The mighty Clydesdales will make your day.
My new favorite song.
He don't know much about history. He don't know much economy. He don't know much about who's his friend. But he knows who not to offend. But you know that's why I love you. And you know that you love me too. What a wonderful world this would be. He don't know much about geography.
We're talking about
He
Mr.
don't know
Obama.
much meteorology. He don't know much about the level of sea. Never heard about Benghazi. But you do know 1 and 1 is 5. And with your help we'll grow and thrive. What a wonderful world this would be. Now I don't claim to be a peace lover. I don't mean to scoff. So let us shake hands like good friends, baby. And if you don't mind, I'll chop it off. He don't know much about true or bluff. Don't know much about army stuff. Don't know much about our human rights. Nothing to know. Don't know much about the nuclear sites. What nuclear sites? But you know that's why I love you. And you know that you love me too. What a wonderful world this would be.
Don't know much
Ta
about
ta ta ta
Benghazi.
ta ta. Ta 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 ta. Ta 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 ta. But you know that's why I love you. And you know that you love me too. What a
All right, thank you. That's our new theme song here for Backfire, I think. Anyway, I want to talk to you about the Washington Redskins incident right now. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, what part of it do you want to talk about?
Any part of it you got on your mind right now?
Well, my big problem is the weaponization of government against the citizens, which is what this country was founded to protect the citizens from oppressive government. So now you have the trademark. Franklin, what is it? The trademark agency, or
Sure.
and they basically are.
I mean, that's essentially what
they're
it is.
trying to force the Redskins to change their name because the politically correct crowd, which unfortunately for you, Franklin, is the majority of the Democrats, want to cram this down our throats. Now, they've already gone to court once this way. They did it, in 2002, I believe, or 3, and the Redskins won. And apparently the Redskins are not going to back down, and they're going to go to court again. And from what I understand, the precedent in the early 2000 case will not be overturned. It's established law. And so you can't come back 80 years later and say, we've decided now to revoke your trademark.
75 years in its U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, I think.
Well, do you know why it was named the Redskins?
Well, there's a real dispute about the facts behind that. I'm not saying I know the answer, but there's two competing stories.
One
about
story is that it was the Boston Braves, and the team was moved to Washington, and the head coach, was a full-blooded Native American Indian, and it was named the Redskins to honor him, basically. But either way, Franklin, he was a full-blooded American Indian, and he apparently didn't have a problem with the name.
You know, I don't know why they have a problem with the name. I've always
Well, the
thought
group that
Redskins
started this,
represented brave, hard.
the group that started this, the guy that was the spokesman is not an Indian, and they are mainly a casino group in upper Connecticut.
I will say this. This is an issue for lots of different places, not just the Washington Redskins. But it's the most difficult one of all of them to reconcile and support. Redskins is clearly, in my judgment, that's not the same thing as the Seminoles or the Fighting Illini.
How about the Fighting Irish?
But what I'm saying to you is that I can understand that's a purely ethnic, skin-based, if you will, description. It was clearly a slur for a long period of time in America. There's no doubt about that.
Why would you name?
I can understand if I were. I'm not going to tell.
Why would you name it a slur?
I'm not going to tell Native Americans how they ought to feel about that.
The polling of actual Native Americans has been supportive of it. This is a small group up in Upper East New England, and the guy that was the spokesman originally isn't even a Native American, and their main claim to fame up there is that they have casino operations.
This is a political deal from Obama. He stated point blank he doesn't like the name.
Well, Franklin, let me ask you a question, because just I believe it was
appease their president.
Earlier this year in Minnesota, a Democrat, I believe he was a state senator, he might have been a state house, he brought up a bill.
We're coming,
and it passed, and it was to quit referring to Asian carp who are destroying the Great Lakes. The Asian carp is an incredibly damaging invasive species, but they now passed the bill not to refer to them as Asian carp because that was derogatory towards Asians. Now, the reason it's called an Asian carp, I don't know, is because it's from Asia.
And it eats moss.
Franklin, are you supportive of doing away with Asian carp?
Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Okay, Doughball, I have a graph this morning.
All right, Miss Red. Let her rip, Tater Chip.
Remember when the cop turned that dog on that guy and he shot it?
No.
The one in Chattanooga?
I don't know where it was at, but anyway, he shot the dog and killed it, and then he shot at the cop. They give that dog a funeral like a human, and I thought, who pays for that?
That was in Chattanooga.
Well, who pays for the funeral?
I'm sure the taxpayer in Chattanooga did.
That was just plumb stupid.
Well, what should they have done with that dog?
Took it out and buried it. It was a dog, and the dogs are trained to kill. And if you turn a dog loose on me, and I'll shoot it.
Well, I wonder.
Well, I will tell you that now, I think Chattanooga law is a little different, but in a lot of areas, that dog will get you the same prison time that shooting a human police officer will.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they'll put that guy behind bars forever, but that don't sound fair. He turned the dog on him.
Well, he turned on him because he was doing something wrong, Red. He's a criminal.
Well, he's a criminal, but don't they have tasers and things like that?
Well, sometimes the dog, and I will tell you, when they release the dogs, normally what they do is they will holler at the guy and say, I'm getting ready to turn the dog loose.
Yeah.
And most of these people have enough sense to give up at that point, because when they turn that dog loose, he's going to run you down.
And they're going to get bit.
But why would they give it a funeral like a human?
Because they consider it a police officer. I'm not disagreeing. I mean, I understand. I think we're a little carried away with our pets, but in this particular case, it is considered a police officer.
I think it's just stupidity myself that they'd spend that much money on it.
Well, we're going to bring the next dog over to your yard and bury it.
You bring it right over here. I'll shoot it for you.
All right, Red, thank you.
Let me go back to our trademark thing for just a second. I have a list of 12 trademarks that apparently are not as offensive as the Washington Redskins trademark. These are official trademarks that the trademark agency has not complained about. And I will apologize on the front end for anybody that's offended by any of these, but these are actual trademarks that our government has recognized. Figgas over niggas, Kraut Cap, Dago Swag, Crack-a-Ass Skateboards, You Can't Make a Housewife Out of a Whore, Blanco Basura, which is translated to white trash, Home Cookin' Biscuit Head. Now, biscuit head is a derogatory term for Koreans because our GIs made that one up.
I just learned something. I didn't know that.
I learned that too. This explains each one of these. They thought their heads were shaped like biscuits, so that's what biscuit head. Teensdoporn.com. Well, that's a wonderful trademark, isn't it? Gypsy Soleil women who live by their own rules. Mammy Jemimas. Gee, that's not a racist term.
Somebody's paying for these things to be registered every year, aren't they?
Uppity Negro. All natural my dad's nuts caramelized jumbo Redskins. Now, in this case, Redskins is not racist because it's actually a peanut product. So apparently that's okay, Redskins. Mm-hmm. Now, what's my point about all this? This is nothing but political theater coming out of the Obama administration because they've chosen this ox to gore in hopes that it will stir up their base for this next election.
That's exactly right. And the only reason that they did anything with this name is because Mr. Obama publicly talked about it, that he didn't think that it was a good name and it should be changed. So,
because it stirs up his base.
So the patent office is doing what they think their president wants.
Well, I just checking on some things that John was saying a moment ago, and not disagreeing with him, but the lawsuit that prompted all of this is supported by the Cherokee Nation, the Comanche Nation, the Oneida Nation, the Seminole Tribes, the National Congress of American Indians, which is the largest intertribal organization in the country, representing more than 1.2 million Native Americans. I don't know the answer to that question, but
you think they're going to build another casino and call it Redskin
Well,
Valley?
it's not just
in Washington.
A group
Frankly,
promoting
what I
a
said
casino,
was
though.
When it started, that's all there was. Now, sure, these things, once you get them rolling, people go, sure, I'll jump on that bandwagon.
If they do something about this, Franklin, it's going to try. They're going to try to change America. Period.
Look at what I just read. Look at those trademarks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If we're going to say the Redskins are offensive, are you telling me those aren't offensive?
I mean, if they do this, Franklin, it's going to lead to the Atlanta Braves. It's going to Florida Seminoles. It's going to keep going and going and going. Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Hey, good morning.
I'm just like John on that. I think somebody's just trying to stir up something about the Washington Redskins, but I'm surprised they didn't say anything about the Yankees, New York Yankees, because that could be offensive if I just come to think about it, because they're up north.
Good point.
It was offensive around here for a long time.
Let's see now. What about the Hillbillies?
Yeah, and you think they'll ever do something about some of our high school teams, like the Maryville Rebels?
They already did it in Chattanooga years ago. The Brainerd Rebels.
Well, I mean, think about this. You got people that say it's wrong for a zoo to exhibit an elephant. You think someone's not going to go, well, you have no right to call them the Bradley Bears. Did you poll the Bears? Bears have feelings. Did you ask them how they feel about being the mascot? I mean, this is liberal ridiculousness, and it is meant to stir
it certainly
up the
gets out of
base.
control, but
but it'll stir the base
up.
But is
that any different than the folks on the other side of the extremity who wanted to get rid of all the mascots that were the Devils, the Blue Devils, the Red Devils, so forth? That happened too, and those weren't liberals doing it. So
Well, guys, I appreciate you.
All right, thanks.
Now then, there was a big hoo-la-la in Chattanooga years ago about the UTC Moxicans.
Oh, yeah, then they changed.
And now what's it called?
I don't even, what is it called?
It's the Mockingbirds.
Mockingbirds.
Yeah,
They changed
their name is officially the Mocs.
Mocs.
Yeah, no, it's the Mockingbirds, and they call it the Mocs so they don't have to call it Mockingbirds.
Yeah.
It used to be called the Moxicans.
Well, nothing like a little wobbly-legged, teeny little
Mockingbird
mascot. Hey, we got wobbly little legs, and we weigh about 2 ounces.
Why would they
and
have
we're going to
changed
kick
that?
your butt on the football
Hey,
field.
Franklin, why would they have changed that in Chattanooga?
Well, I'm a UTC graduate, so there was a big debate about whether or not a school was really had a cool mascot if it was a shoe. And so they thought
Mockingbird's better.
Well, Mockingbird's pretty fierce. If you've ever been dive bombed on one.
Well, I don't know. Most of the birds I've dealt with have been at the end of my shotgun, so I've never been that afraid
So you
of
take
them.
your shotgun to mockingbirds, do you?
Well, I mean, I guess I look at it in that perspective: bird, human, human brain, build gun, shoot bird.
All right, now then, I was looking at some comments about the immigration problem we've got going on with all the children from Central America coming to, and I want to give you some comments that I read on the internet about this and how people really feel. It said, why don't we house them in Air Force One and send them back to Central America? Let's put them in the White House with their buddy. Let's build a tent city at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and take them there. While Obama is importing these children, he's also importing communicable diseases. Send them to Hawaii. Obama will send to the states he did not carry, just like he's already done in Arizona. Put them on buses and send them back. Charter buses. Send them to Mexico or let Pelosi and Reid keep them at their house. State government should bus them to D.C. and drop them off at the National Mall. And then one last comment. No wonder our schools are in such a mess.
Well, the president of the Border Patrol Union has come out pretty hard on this. For example, he said, we're very restricted in how we're allowed to operate. We're not allowed to do immigration checks at transportation hubs unless we have specific actionable intelligence. We're not allowed to do farm and ranch checks. We're not allowed to do interior patrols. We're not allowed to touch smugglers and migrants while they're crossing the Rio Grande, supposedly because of safety issues. We're still being controlled in how many hours we can work. And we're now limited to 9-hour shifts. We don't have full manpower out in the fields. But the interesting thing is a federal judge has actually said that this administration is actually working to block enforcement of immigration laws. The Department of Homeland Security, and this is a quote from the judge, should cease telling the citizens of the United States that it is enforcing our border security laws because it is clearly not. Now, that's a federal judge's ruling. Franklin, it's a federal judge.
I don't know what ruling you're talking about, but y'all seem to be skipping over a fairly significant point here.
What is it?
All these people we're talking about are people who were apprehended by the immigration
and then
officials.
Released and told to
no,
return.
they're being held right now. That's what we're talking about.
No, they're not being held.
No, it's 39,000 adults and 52,000 children.
They're coming over and saying, "Here I am. Please take me."
Now, Franklin, this is
That's right. They're in custody.
This
so
is
the system is actually.
Listen to me. They are not in custody.
No.
This is Democratic representative. Democrat.
What are they doing with
Now,
them?
wait a minute. Henry Cuellar said on June 23rd, this is a quote from a Democratic congressman, probably over 40,000 individuals have been released. And after you've traveled thousands of miles and you've paid thousands of dollars and went through a very difficult situation, you get over here and they tell you to appear in court at 90 days. I would say that the vast majority are not going to show up. That's a Democrat congressman, Franklin, not a Republican.
Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you talk about respect for laws a lot. There are laws that deal with this situation that have to be followed.
Is the president's executive order in keeping with current law? The president couldn't get his, no, it's not. He couldn't get his DREAM Act passed, and so he put in place executive action, which is actually in violation of current law. And you know how that works, Franklin. Somebody has to take it to court and show that that executive action is a violation of law. By the way, just this past week, House Democrats introduced a bill to provide taxpayer-funded lawyers to the illegal alien kids. So now we're going to pay for lawyers, and what they say is, Democrats said most of the illegal immigrant children are not aware of the technicalities they can use to stay in the country, and that is why they need the taxpayer-funded legal representation.
If we just stopped them at the line and say, do not enter, what would happen?
Well, one, if you sent them back, they'd quit
What would probably happen is that my good friends on the Republican side would complain that we're wasting money.
We're wasting money flying them into the interior now and giving them lawyers. If you're going to waste money, at least waste money sending them back to the country they came from, because guess what? That sends a message, don't come back over here.
That's right. I mean, why do you even let them in on our soil?
The Department of Homeland Security has estimated that 90,000 unaccompanied minors will try to enter this country, and there have already been 52,000 illegal immigrant children who have entered from October of last year to June 15th of this year.
They're talking about 160,000.
Well, guess what? They did a survey.
Are in custody.
They did a survey, and there's 50-something million Chinese that would like to come to this country.
You
going to let them?
Says when you go into custody that you're entitled to a hearing before you're deported.
Well, then I say we don't take them. You had a president before the last election that opened this door by saying anybody under 16 will not be prosecuted and sent back. That was, you can go down, Franklin, they've gone to these countries and asked them, and they said, the president said we could come, so we're coming. This was a manufactured crisis by the Obama administration.
Statements out there telling those folks that they don't qualify under that standard.
But they know that when they get here, they're told to appear in court in 90 days. That's a Democrat.
No, not the children, because the children are not released.
The children, guess what, Franklin?
They're in custody.
I will read this to you again from the chairman of the union.
He's talking about adults, not children.
No.
The children are in custody.
They
That's
are
who we're
turned
talking
over
about.
to representatives, and the Border Patrol people are not even allowed to ask if they're family or if they're legal, and they are being given to family members and released and told to return to court in 90 days.
This about the number of kids that are being warehoused down there because they have nowhere else to put them.
They're being warehoused because they have nowhere to put them, because they're letting them come in. Just stop
they
it.
Caught them. That's why they're in custody.
All right, this is a quote, Franklin. This is
they're
from
on our soil when we catch them.
This is from
Stop
the
them
union
coming.
president of the Border Patrol. He says that, for example, if the president wanted to stop this, he would, quote, they would stop releasing them to family members in the U.S. and make sure they're in long-term detention until they could either verify an asylum claim or a claim for persecution. That's a quote from the Border Patrol union president.
Last week, you were complaining about how many kids were in custody.
Franklin, I didn't complain about him being in custody. I complained about him opening the gates to let them come. They are now being turned loose
because they were caught at the border.
And now they're being given to people who come up and say, I'm here to claim them, and the Border Patrol agents are not even able to ask, are you a legal citizen?
For 5.5 years, I've listened to you complain about not intercepting people at the border. Now we're intercepting people at the border.
And releasing them.
You're upset about that.
No, I'm upset about not sending them back, Franklin. Hey.
We'll see you next week.
Let's see you next week.
Bye-bye.
All right.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.
Such a rare sight, all black and white, big excitement all around.
Check Into Cash, your one-stop money shop, introduces the Cashdales, our beautiful Clydesdale horses now touring the United States, representing our company heritage, appearing in parade